have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am
I am
tired,
tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name is Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to see you this morning. It is Monday, May 5, Cinco de Mayo, and welcome to this special Cinco de Mayo edition of the Bill Press Show. Good to see you this Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend here in Washington, D.C. It was the big party weekend, as you've probably heard. Party, 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 all surrounding the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Friday night, there were no fewer than 16 different pre-dinner parties around town. I want you to know I made only 3 of them, but I did my share. Saturday night was the dinner with parties ahead of time and parties after the dinner. And then yesterday were the follow-up brunches to the dinner. Telling you, it's a full-time job just keeping up with events this weekend. At the dinner, President Obama hit it out of the park with a great stand-up comedy routine, thanks to him and his writers. And entertainment, the entertainment for the evening, Joel McHale. He did a good job, very funny, sometimes over the line. He ended up insulting just about everybody in the room. Well, that deal, big dinner is behind us for this year. There was other news over the weekend, more unrest in the Ukraine. Things are really getting even more and more tense there. President Obama and Chancellor Angela Merkel holding a news conference in the Rose Garden on Friday. I was there, where the big news was that they agreed to disagree about spying and how to protect citizens' privacies. Angela Merkel making it very clear she wasn't happy with what the NSA is doing. And, of course, in other news, California Chrome wins the Kentucky Derby. We got lots to talk about this Monday morning. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The White House Correspondents' Dinner is over. Now we can get back to work. Hey, good morning, everybody. What do you say? Great to see you this morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Bill Press Show on a very special day. All right. Got the little special music ready? Because today is Monday, Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. There we go. Yes, indeed. May 5, Cinco de Mayo. Buen Cinco de Mayo a todos ustedes. Y gracias. I've run out of my Spanish here. All right. Okay. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here on the Cinco de Mayo. Buenos dias. Yes, indeed. Coming to you live from our nation's capital on your local progressive talk radio station and on Free Speech TV nationwide. All of that coast to coast of radio and TV and worldwide on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Peter Ogburn still down in New Orleans enjoying the Jazz Fest and I'm sure other things that New Orleans has to offer. He'll be back later in the week. That means Elisa Murphy, she is still on the job and doing a good job running the 747. Good morning, Elisa.
Hey, good morning. Happy Monday.
Right, wearing both hats, yours and Peter's this morning. Alicia Cruz is here on the phones as always. Hope you guys had a good weekend.
Yeah, it was nice.
And Cyprian Bolding is here as well on the video stream. That's why we're looking so good on youtube.com/TawkrTV and on Free Speech TV. He's got the cameras, the covers off the cameras and the lights on. So, yeah, so there you go. Indeed, you'll hear a lot about it this morning, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. It is it's what we call the senior prom weekend or nerd weekend when everybody in Washington, from the politicians to the media to Hollywood celebrities who come into town for the occasion to sports stars to the media from New York to come down here. Everybody kind of gathers to pat themselves on the back. The big event, there are parties before, parties after, parties the night before, parties the day after. The big event is the dinner itself at the Washington Hilton, and the crowd assembles. There were 2,000, about 20, well, 1 sec. Yeah, 2,630 people.
It was a huge room.
Huge room, huge crowd. 2,630 people in the ballroom when the president makes his big entrance on stage. And the crowd stands and applauds. The president comes in, sits at head table with members of the White House Correspondents Association board. That's a Marine band playing there. They give out the dinner, then they give out the awards, and then afterwards there are really just two speakers, both of them basically stand-up comics. The President of the United States, who always does a killer. Obama is so good at it. He does a killer stand-up comedy routine, followed by always some professional comedian who does usually okay, but never as good as the president. President Obama, Joel McHale did a good job. Offended a lot of people, but that's his job. Sometimes some of his lines did go over the line. President Obama started out by, as he said, with self-deprecating humor. He's always supposed to start, and he did, talking about the big success of 2013.
Of course, we rolled out healthcare.gov. That could have gone better.
The president also has a great habit of laughing at his own jokes. When people laugh, then he'll sort of chuckle too, which is kind of funny.
Makes it even better.
He mentioned that with healthcare.gov, they had to adopt a whole new slogan.
In 2008, my slogan was, "Yes, we can." In 2013, my slogan was, "Control, Alt, Delete."
That was good.
He went on and on. It was a great evening, and we will play you some of the president's other best lines as we go along. We got a great lineup this morning for this first Monday of May. President Dennis Van Roekel, president of the National Education Association, will join us, as well as President J. David Cox, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, two great labor leaders with us this morning, and Dylan Byers, who is the chief media critic of Politico, will be here to take a look at all the big media news of the weekend. Well, this hour, too, we'll check in with Scott Bland from the National Journal. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just one little story that caught my attention here. You know, we don't do the full-pledged Full Court Press when Peter's not here. But a great story out of New Jersey. A New Jersey girl this morning, all smiles after she went to a shelter to find a new puppy because she lost her puppy 18 months ago in Superstorm Sandy. Her puppy was Reckless, and they had a brown and white terrier pit bull mix. They had spent months searching the New Jersey shore looking for Reckless, never found her, so finally the little girl gave up. She went to a shelter to get a new dog, and 18 months later she found Reckless at her dog at that shelter, and she and her puppy were reunited. And isn't that a great...
It's such a wonderful story.
Warm story and a great ending to so much sad news about Hurricane Sandy. The father said he didn't mind paying. It cost $180 to get the dog back. He didn't mind paying it at all. He said they took good care of the dog, microchipped him. He saw a vet regularly, and they sheltered him for 18 months, which is incredible. I was afraid that they really put dogs away before that.
That's a long time. I heard the father said it was like winning the lottery without buying a ticket.
He said it was also like bailing his dog out of jail.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Paid $180. So what a great story to start off the week with. And I got to tell you, man, the news on Friday. What an interesting kind of twist of events. You may have seen I was on MSNBC Friday night with the Reverend Al Sharpton, and we talked about this. There was a lot of news Friday, a lot of news on many fronts, particularly when Angela, and I know you're supposed to call her Angela Merkel, was at the White House with the president. I was there for that news conference. They talked about lots of important stuff. But all the Republicans were talking about, once again, was Benghazi. And my question to you this morning is, do Americans really care? Obviously, Republicans think they do. So let's just kind of back up. Okay, so we're in the Rose Garden for this news conference with Angela Merkel and President Obama. By the way, we had to sit there. They were about a half an hour late, sitting in the sun in the Rose Garden, waiting for them. Finally, they came out, and there was a lot. And the way this works is you get 4 questions when you have a leader from another country. All the news conferences are the same format. Pardon me. The president speaks, then the foreign leader speaks, and then you get two American reporters get to ask a question, and 2 German reporters, in this case, or foreign reporters, get to ask questions. So a total of 4 questions. And President Obama spoke about some of the things that they had talked about. The Chancellor Merkel spoke about from her perspective, what were the important things they talked about. And then the questions came. And the first question, of course, was about Ukraine. It was interesting that both leaders said, they basically shared very strongly their opinions about what was happening in Ukraine. Obviously, there were some differences, too, because the president wants Germany and other European countries to go further in terms of sanctions against Russia, which they're unwilling to do. But that was very important stuff. Then there was a question about, in fact, in her remarks, I was really struck by this. In her opening remarks, before there was a question about it even, Angela Merkel raised the question of spying. Remember, the president, it was discovered when the whole Snowden documents came out that we were spying on Angela Merkel's private cell phone. And she said, we discussed surveillance, we discussed spying, and there are still a lot of differences between the two countries on this issue. So there was a question about that. President Obama got a little on the defensive there, saying, well, we both share the same goal, which is we have to fight terrorism and we need intelligence to do it. At the same time, he said, we have some differences we have to work out between the two countries. In fact, we have him there saying that, Lisa, where the president at the news conference talking the very first bite about the differences.
We're not perfectly aligned yet, but we share the same values and we share the same concerns. And this is something that is deeply important to me.
And Angela Merkel had a great phrase. It was something like, yes, she said, I agree with the president. There are opportunities to resolve our differences. She didn't deny there were differences. So that was really very, very newsworthy, the exchange between them on that issue. And then they're going to go back to the German press, at which point, this is the thing, at which point Fox News says, hell, this news conference isn't worth covering because they're not asking about our issue. Here's what it sounded like on Fox News. This is right about 12:30 maybe on Friday.
I believe that we're going to be able to get them resolved to the satisfaction, not just of our two countries, but of people around the world.
Here's the Fox
All
News
right, we
host.
were waiting for others to ask questions. We know that the next question that's coming up is from a German reporter. We are not anticipating that would be about the situation with Benghazi, which is breaking news since the president has been talking, really. So if, in fact, somebody throws him a question on this topic, we'll go back to that joint news conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and you could hear some of the translation points with the question, so on and so forth. We're going to move on here with what is breaking.
See, Fox is saying, damn it, how dare they not talk about what we want to talk about? How dare the president not talk about the Fox News agenda? And that was a Fox News agenda, and that was the agenda on the Hill. And what happened Friday, two things, which Fox News was trumpeting, and that's all they covered all day Friday. Two things is, first of all, Darrell Issa, head of the Oversight Committee, issues a subpoena to John Kerry to come testify on Benghazi. Now, this is Darrell Issa, who's already held, I don't know, you name it, a dozen hearings already on Benghazi. Remember, he had Hillary Clinton up, he had all these other people come up and testify. He keeps beating this dead horse, number one. So he's had already a dozen hearings on Benghazi. And number two, he issues a subpoena to John Kerry. Now, usually subpoena comes when somebody has refused to testify for weeks and weeks or months and months or whatever. But in this case, he didn't even take the courtesy, extend the courtesy of inviting John Kerry to testify, of asking, could you give us a date, Mr. Secretary? Would you be willing to come down and testify? Maybe we could work out a date of finding out his schedule or anything. No, he skipped all of that. He just issued a subpoena as if he's a criminal. And Kerry wasn't Secretary of State when Benghazi happened. So that was just crazy. And then even crazier, John Boehner announces that he's going to appoint a special committee of the House to investigate Benghazi. Again, they've already had over a dozen hearings in the House on Benghazi, Republicans had. So this is going to be like a special Watergate committee, as if Benghazi is at that level. And what it's all about is that last week, there was one more email that was not included in the 25,000 pages of documents they already released. One more email from Ben Rhodes, who's a national security advisor at the White House, to White House aides, including Susan Rice, when Susan Rice was going to testify on the Sunday morning shows right after the Benghazi attack happened on the night of September 11, 2012. And Ben Rhodes said, basically, here are some of the goals of your testimony. of your appearance on the Meet the Press. One goal, for example, is to convey that the United States is doing everything we can to protect our people and facilities abroad. That's supposed to be shocking. Lindsey Graham says that's the smoking gun we've been looking for. I read it, word for word. Goal, to convey that the United States is doing everything that we can to protect our people and facilities abroad. That's the smoking gun? That's the email that they're raising all this hell about, and they say proves that the White House was behind a cover-up. All this proves is that the White House, one White House aide, was giving talking points to a top administration official who is going to appear on television. You know, what the hell? Everybody gets talking points before they appear on television. John Boehner does. Darrell Issa does. Barack Obama does. Joe Biden does. They all do. I mean, that's hardly news. That's hardly an impeachable offense. But because reporters didn't ask about that, Fox News broke away from the news conference. Yeah. And I'll tell you why reporters didn't ask about Benghazi. Because it's not news. Because there's nothing there. So my question to you is, Republicans are pretty clear. We're going to hear nothing about but Benghazi for the next year, certainly for the remainder of 2014. Do American people care? Do you think it's going to work? 866-55-PRESS. I think the American people get it. I think they see that this is nothing but Republicans trying to play politics with terrorism and trying to hold Barack Obama responsible and make him look soft on terror. Let's talk about it. Monday morning, 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity, and one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him, because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So Republicans full court press, if you will, on Benghazi. That's all they wanted to talk about Friday. And President Obama and Chancellor Angela Merkel didn't talk about Benghazi. Then Fox News would not even cover the presidential news conference. Fox News is saying, we will decide what's news and what's not. Gene is calling from Cleveland, Ohio. Hey, Gene, good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Of course it's not important. First of all, it was a small consulate. There wasn't enough room for any more security in there. The fact is, from what I understand, the security force was housed outside the consulate.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that guy that was on 60 Minutes, he was one of the contractors that was supposed to protect the consulate. Where was he? Was he back in his quarters changing his diaper or what?
I think they were far. They were not even, from what I've read, they weren't even on the scene. You're right. They were like a mile away or something like that, Gene, right?
That they had there in there, because that guy wasn't even there.
Yeah. No, the whole thing, I mean, but Republicans, it's been one lie after another on Benghazi. And again, the question is, I appreciate the call, Gene, do you think Americans will really buy this crap that Republicans are putting out at Benghazi? 866-55-PRESS, more in Benghazi, and your calls coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like, go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, your next venture.
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go now at 34 minutes after the hour, Monday morning, Cinco de Mayo, the Bill Press Show, taking a look at the latest. Bouncing off one email released by the State Department last week, Republicans announced that they have found the smoking gun on Benghazi, which proves that the White House was engaged in a huge cover-up to lie to the American people about what Benghazi was all about. By the way, and my column in the Hill newspaper tomorrow, we'll talk about this. This is just the latest in a string of lies that Republicans have been telling about Benghazi for the last 2 years, where they've held over a dozen hearings, Republicans in the House have, on Benghazi. And my question to you is whether this will work as a strategy. Clearly, Republicans think this and Obamacare are going to get them to own the world again, take over the Senate, increase their lead in the House or whatever. These are the issues they're going to run on this year. Well, we know Obamacare is working now. It's harder for them to run on that. So they've upped the ante on Obamacare, on Benghazi, by saying they're even going to have a special committee now appointed to investigate Benghazi. But, back to the lies from the very beginning. Let me just start with this one. Republicans still say that President Obama never called this an act of terror. They still say that. It is an absolute, total, 100% lie. The attack happened the night of September 11, 2012. Check out, if you don't believe me, Google it. I was in the Rose Garden the next morning, the morning of September 12, 2012, when President Obama held a news conference with Susan Rice by his side and condemned what happened at Benghazi and said we're going to find the people responsible. And he said these kinds of acts of terror can never deter the determination or undermine the determination of the United States. But again, he used the phrase act of terror. Now, maybe he didn't say it's an act of terrorism, but do you think there's a big difference between that and an act of terror? I mean, the president said that, but Republicans still claim he never called an act of terror, and he did the very next morning. So this latest thing, that this email from Ben Rhodes, and I want to point again, in the email, he has 4 goals. The first goal is to convey that the United States is doing everything that we can to protect our people and facilities abroad. That is what Republicans, that's what Lindsey Graham is saying is the smoking gun. John McCain saying the same thing. Darrell Issa, John Boehner, proves that the White House, President Obama, is responsible for what happened in Benghazi. Before we get back to your calls, my point is this. My main point is the contrast. Here's what I think is so telling. The contrast between 2 September 11s. September 11, 2001, 3,000 people killed at the Pentagon and the World Trade Center buildings. Republicans and Democrats unite and they say, let's get the bastards who did that to us. Flash forward. September 11, 2012. Not 3,000, 4. 4 Americans killed. And before the attack was even over, while it was still taking place, before it had been reported that Ambassador Chris Stevens was killed, Mitt Romney, presidential candidate, put out a statement accusing President Obama of sympathizing with the people who carried out the attack, and Republicans have made this Benghazi a partisan political football ever since. That's the difference between the 2 September 11s. Laura is calling from Sebring, Florida. What do you think, Laura?
Oh, I think it's a water pistol. It's not a smoking gun.
Good point, yeah.
But I'll tell you what really upsets me is that, okay, these men went over there and they knew they were in danger because we're at war. We were at war.
Yeah.
But what happened about the teacher that was jogging in front of the consulate and got killed? Nobody talks about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
That poor guy was 33 years old, got gunned down. They loved him over there. He was a teacher, and he got shot by 2 assailants. Okay, now, that doesn't make the news, but it's ridiculous. This Benghazi's gone on too long.
Another thing, Laura, there's no doubt about it, that part of the motivation here is not just to blame it all on President Obama, but also to derail Hillary Clinton, right, for 2016. This is already, I think, part of the preemptive strike on Hillary Clinton to try to keep this issue alive so they can hang it around her neck for 2016.
You got that right.
Yeah. But I don't think the American people buy it. I think they see what really went on here. And I think the focus ought to be, again, it's hard to do in a country like Libya, which is basically an anarchy now, the focus on finding who is responsible and bring them to justice. And by the way, Jay Carney said this last week, and if those people who carried out this attack in Libya don't think that eventually we'll get them, they should ask the family of Osama bin Laden. John is in Bellingwood, South Carolina. Hey, John, good morning.
How you doing?
I'm good. What's up?
I think they ought to drop that. There's more important things to talk about, like Brazil and treason and Elizabeth Warren and sustainable development and all this stuff that, these C40 cities, and how by 2030 we're going to be under the control of Brazil if these progressives get their way. And I think it's terrible. I think we need to talk about being agents of Brazil.
Well, I'm not really up to date on that story, John, at all.
John Foley and Glickman and all these other pieces. June 24th, 2012.
Yeah.
You could find them videos on C-SPAN.
All right. No, I'll check it out. But I do agree with you on this. There are plenty of other. I appreciate the call, John. Good to hear from you down in South Carolina. Too bad Peter's not here today. He's our South Carolina native. But no, I agree with you that there are lots of other things that ought to be done. Look, the House ought to be doing something about climate change. The House ought to be doing something about jobs. The House ought to be doing something about extending unemployment insurance. They ought to be taking up the issue of immigration reform. They ought to be doing something to raise a minimum wage. I mean, where do you start? Where do you stop in terms of what the House could be doing instead of yet another Darrell Issa hearing on Benghazi? I guess he finally ran out of gas on the IRS. At least for now. Yeah, the last thing we need is yet another Darrell Issa hearing on Benghazi and a special committee to investigate Benghazi? Really? Like a Watergate committee? By the way, I was with Congresswoman Donna Edwards at the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday night. She was one of my guests, and she said she thinks that the Democrats should refuse to appoint any Democrat to that committee. Boy, I agree. That would be the way to go. Just to show that it's just a Republican stunt. No Democrats serve on that committee. That's the way to go. Mim is up in Stony Brook, New York. Hi, Mim. Good morning.
Hi, Bill.
Yeah, what's up?
The White House should remind Darrell Issa that it was the Republicans who denied the State Department request much earlier for more funding.
More funding. Right. Yep.
That would put paid to him.
Yeah. In fact, you raise an interesting point, Mim. I see a little bit of a swift boat problem here, meaning I don't think the White House and Democrats have been quick enough to shoot down all of these lies that the Republicans put out about Benghazi. Because
they are terrible at messaging.
Yes, yeah, and they're terrible at fighting back. And remember, back then, John Kerry didn't answer the swift boat attacks because he figured if he didn't answer, then they would just go away. Well, guess what? On Benghazi, 2 years later, it hasn't gone away, right?
Right. Nothing goes away with the Republicans because they have nothing else.
No, I know. So you just got to hammer them and you got to tell the American people the truth. Mim, appreciate hearing from you as always. Let's squeeze in one more before we have to move on. Bob is in St. Petersburg, Florida. Hey, Bob.
Hi.
Hey, what's up?
Taking my call.
Thank you.
I've been thinking that all this Benghazi talk recently is more just a conservative media effort to push the narrative to the negative. In other words, we're talking about Benghazi rather than talking about the 288,000 jobs created last month, or the fact that the stock market has more than doubled, since Barack Obama has been in office. It seems like we're talking about the wrong things. We should be talking about the positive.
Excellent point, Bob. And I would say from your lips to Barack Obama's ears, or to whoever at the White House is deciding what their message ought to be, they should be out there making that very same point. Hey, you want to talk about Benghazi? I want to talk to you about this economy. And I want to talk to you about jobs. And I want to talk to you about the middle class. And I want to talk to you, here's what we're doing to help them. And let Republicans stew with Benghazi. I don't think it'll work. When we come back, lots going on here. Scott Bland will join us. He's editor-in-chief of the national journal Hotline. Stay with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Monday morning, Cinco de Mayo, 2014. At 11 minutes before the top of the hour, well, boy, everybody in Washington, it's going to be tough getting back to work after this wild weekend. Let's try to chart our way through it with Scott Bland, editor-in-chief of the National Journal Hotline, joining us on our news line this morning. Hello, Scott. Did you survive the weekend?
Good morning. Yeah, I think I seem to have made it through.
Yeah, it was by the time somebody told me there were 16 different parties Friday night alone, right? You know, it's just crazy, getting wilder and wilder. I don't know about you, Scott. I only made 3 of them, so but I felt that I did my share anyhow. But Friday afternoon, I was there in the Rose Garden with President Obama and Chancellor Angela Merkel. I thought the exchange on intelligence and NSA was very interesting. Got a little tense at times. Clearly, they don't agree on this issue, on all aspects of it. At any rate, wouldn't you say?
Well, right, and things have been particularly tense on this front between the two since it came out that there had been intelligence collected off of Merkel's own mobile devices, and so I think that's I actually can't think of another example of two world leaders meeting in person in a similar circumstance with something like that so fresh in the in the rearview mirror. But it really gets to the extent to which the revelations on U.S. intelligence practices from Edward Snowden and Glenn Greenwald and the Washington Post work and so on is has complicated relationships with allies about because everyone's collecting intelligence on everyone, but there's I think it gets swept under the rug until it's out in the open, and then people get very upset about it. But
yeah, right.
And I this is one example of what happens when even very close allies can find out about this stuff.
And she was very clear. I mean, she did not say, "Oh, that was that's the past, and we've moved on" or anything. I mean, she made it very clear there were still some major differences in the approach between what Germany believes and what the United States practices in terms of surveillance. So they've got some things to work through there. Meanwhile, John Boehner says we're going to have a special Watergate kind of committee to investigate Benghazi. What is left to investigate, Scott?
Well, I think the goal behind the goal behind naming a select committee is to elevate the issue again. First of all, this is one of those. It's never, especially to people who are following what's going on in Capitol Hill every day. This has never disappeared over the last year and a half.
Thanks to Darrell Issa particularly.
Right, exactly. But I think, and again, the comparison to Watergate and the gravity of the news of appointing a special panel is I think part of this, but also the fact that new emails that weren't included in the initial request for all information to do with what was going on with this that just came out, I think was taken by House Republicans as an affront worth pursuing.
As an affront or as an excuse. Let me ask you this. Do you think this is directed against Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton? What's the real agenda here?
That's a good question. I think, honestly, I do think it's directed against the president. However much this could end up being an issue for Hillary Clinton if she does run for president in 2016, the fact remains that we're still we've still got an entire election before we get to that. It's 2014 right now. Republicans are trying to win the Senate, and they're doing it in red states that are kind of allergic to the president to begin with. Mm-hmm. And so I think any political considerations that there are kind of first focused on what's coming first.
Yeah,
I would think.
Yeah, there's a short-term, but also a long-term agenda to it. You've got to admit the well. And by the way, one of the better parties I went to over the weekend was the Atlantic National Journal Party before the dinner Saturday night. So we thank you all for that, Scott.
Oh, of course.
All right, and thank
My
you
pleasure.
thank you for your time this morning too. As always, Scott Bland is editor-in-chief of the Hotline. Publication of the National Journal, been around for a long time. It's a great read, great way to keep up to date on what's going on here in Washington at nationaljournal.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Yes, in the next hour, Dylan Byers, chief media critic for Politico, will be here in studio with us. And then we'll also be talking with President Dennis Van Roekel, president of the National Education Association. Lots more coming up, more on Benghazi, more on the White House Correspondents' Dinner over the weekend, and more on what the president and the vice president have on their agenda this week. So stay tuned. 2 more hours coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Great to see you this morning. It is Monday, May 5, Cinco de Mayo, and welcome to this special Cinco de Mayo edition of the Bill Press Show. Good to see you this Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend here in Washington, D.C. It was the big party weekend, as you've probably heard. Party, 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 all surrounding the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Friday night, there were no fewer than 16 different pre-dinner parties around town. I want you to know I made only 3 of them, but I did my share. Saturday night was the dinner with parties ahead of time and parties after the dinner. And then yesterday were the follow-up brunches to the dinner. Telling you, it's a full-time job just keeping up with events this weekend. At the dinner, President Obama hit it out of the park with a great stand-up comedy routine, thanks to him and his writers. And entertainment, the entertainment for the evening, Joel McHale. He did a good job, very funny, sometimes over the line. He ended up insulting just about everybody in the room. Well, that deal, big dinner is behind us for this year. There was other news over the weekend, more unrest in the Ukraine. Things are really getting even more and more tense there. President Obama and Chancellor Angela Merkel holding a news conference in the Rose Garden on Friday. I was there, where the big news was that they agreed to disagree about spying and how to protect citizens' privacies. Angela Merkel making it very clear she wasn't happy with what the NSA is doing. And, of course, in other news, California Chrome wins the Kentucky Derby. We got lots to talk about this Monday morning. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Washington, back to work today, trying to recover from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Great to see you on this Monday morning. And it's a very special Monday indeed. Are we ready, Elisa? Yes, it is Monday, Cinco de Mayo. Yeah. There we go, a little margarita to start off this morning, or sangria or something at any rate. Buen Cinco de Mayo, and thank you for joining us on the very special day, special Cinco de Mayo edition of the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital, booming out to you on your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast, on Free Speech TV, also coast to coast and worldwide on our video stream. Catch it at youtube.com/TawkrTV. It was great fun to be at the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday night, sitting just 2 chairs away from Dylan Byers, the esteemed media critic, famous media critic for Politico, and he is in studio with us this morning. Dylan, you know, you've been partying all weekend.
I feel great.
Yeah.
I feel great.
Bet you don't.
It's just after 7 o'clock on Monday, and it's been a very long weekend.
And you have paid the ultimate price of getting up this early. We've never seen you this early in the morning.
I've never seen me this early.
When Peter Ogburn comes back from this vacation, he is not going to believe that Dylan Byers was here. He may think that he may believe you were scheduled for 7 o'clock, but that you actually, but they actually showed up. So
it was a great weekend, though.
Yeah,
it was so much fun.
Great to see you, and I thought you must have particularly enjoyed some of the lines about the media at Saturday night's dinner.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Here is President Obama. He went after every one of the networks, particularly after cable, starting with Fox News.
The Koch brothers bought a table here tonight, but as usual, they used a shadowy right-wing organization as a front. Hello, Fox News.
They really hit home.
It really did hit home. What's funny, though, is that, I think Fox News is used to those ones. I think they're used to the sort of rap that they get from Obama and from any Democratic politician. The jokes about MSNBC's low ratings and CNN, doing nothing but covering the plane, those were the ones that really struck me as being really brutal.
They really did. You could hear the reaction to the crowd. Here's the president on CNN.
Yeah.
I am happy to be here, even though I am a little jet-lagged from my trip to Malaysia. The lengths we have to go to get CNN coverage these days.
That was brutal.
Yeah. It's amazing. You run into CNN, the CNN people. Obviously, CNN buys a lot of tables.
And our table, we were right alongside of all the CNN people.
Right. And it's funny because if you look at their facial expressions, you can see some of them sort of taking it in stride, and you can see others sort of like harboring this deep resentment that they continue to be made fun of for this plane coverage.
Carol watched at home, and she said that the camera was on Wolf Blitzer at that time, and he did not smile.
That's amazing.
And the line about MSNBC I thought was equally brutal. We don't have the sound of that, but the president in fact said that MSNBC was overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Because they'd never
seen an audience this large.
They hadn't seen an audience this large.
I got to tell you, especially with how MS is doing in the ratings right now, it's just, I'm sure that one hurt Phil Griffin.
No, they all came in for their whack. So Dylan is here for this first half hour. We're going to be joined by President Dennis Van Roekel from the National Education Association. And then J. David Cox, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, will be here also in studio with us. And we'll get right to the news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
All right, so Dylan, with Peter out, I am doing an abbreviated Full Court Press. Just kind of one story that caught my attention. Uh-huh. This one out of Norcross, Georgia, right? Now, the crime wave in Georgia is a little different than it is in the rest of the country. There's a man who robbed a Waffle House in...
Did he take waffles?
In Norcross, Georgia. No, but he went into the Waffle House wearing coveralls and a ski mask and carrying as his weapon a pitchfork.
A pitchfork.
A pitchfork.
With which to eat the waffles.
And with a pitchfork, he herded all the employees in a back room and then walked out with a cash register and his pitchfork.
Oh my God, it worked.
Yeah.
He did it.
Well, it sort of worked. But he dropped his pitchfork as he's putting the cash register into his pickup truck.
Is he Amish?
Yeah, right. And a couple of employees ran out, grabbed the pitchfork, and broke the back windows of his pickup truck with his pitchfork as he's driving off. So they haven't caught the guy yet so far, but they have his pitchfork. Can you imagine? I mean, this is like something.
He'll be
out
the guy
of
in the truck with the windows rolled down, missing his pitchfork.
But they do have a free to carry law for pitchforks in Georgia.
Yeah, right. Usually, I check my pitchfork at the state line.
Well, right, not anymore. God, funny story. So here we go. So we were at the dinner. Let's start with the dinner. Mark Leibovich, author of This Town, who was here last week in studio because This Town is now out in paperback. He says the dinner is a complete abomination.
And then on Twitter wrote with apologies to abomination. Literally that bad. I love Mark. I think he's a great journalist, and I think This Town is a great book. But my feeling about the dinner is, come on, it's a party. Enjoy yourself. Everybody has fun. Mark was at a pre-party on Friday night. I don't know. It just seems to me like there's a lot of self-flagellation that goes on over this weekend about how it's troubling that journalists are seen with their sources, that we're spending all of this money on this event. It's like, look, every industry has events like these, and it's okay once a year to take a night off and just have a party and have a good time. And it's not like journalists and political sources aren't collaborating throughout the rest of the year anyway, going out to drinks, going to events or cocktail hours or things like that.
I did see Mark Leibovich at the bar at the New Yorker party Saturday night or Friday night, and I made a point of going up to him and saying, "You phony! You were on my show this week, and you said you wanted nothing to do with this weekend, and here you are." And he said, "This is my only one party that I'm
just one."
It's like being a little bit pregnant, right?
Yeah. Well, I think Mark would probably readily admit that he is a member of the This Town Club that he writes about, and in fact does recognize that. I just think to go on national television and sort of call it an abomination and then sort of take part in it, it's like, I don't know.
Right. But I think I agree with you on that. It's just relax, right? It's one great big party. You see what it is. I think the only maybe legitimate criticism is it's an event of self-congratulation for a group that hasn't accomplished a lot.
Right. Well, right. So there's
in other words, what are we celebrating?
Right. Exactly.
We haven't done anything about poverty, or we haven't done anything about global warming. We haven't done anything about immigration reform.
Right. And if there are two institutions that have pretty low approval ratings right now, it would be Washington's political class and Washington's media class. I mean, we're not doing terribly well in the light of the nation. And so it's sort of the sort of criticism that Wall Street gets when Wall Street throws a big party.
All right. So there are two speakers. All right. The program is relatively direct. Right. They give out the awards, which nobody pays any attention to, which is sort of the purpose of the dinner, the scholarship awards. But then the president and a stand-up comic, President Obama, with the help of some very skillful writers, had some great lines. Here, I think, is the best line of all.
And I'm feeling sorry, believe it or not, for the Speaker of the House as well. These days, the House Republicans actually give John Boehner a harder time than they give me, which means orange really is the new black.
That was devastating. I remember that being the line that, at least in the House, in the room, brought more laughter than any other joke.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think most people feel that was the line of the night.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
But Obama was in pretty good form.
I thought he was in really good form. I think Obama even if you're, say, a critic of his presidency, or you want to acknowledge that his approval ratings, as he did, are, that those numbers are down, he's always good in that atmosphere. I think judged against past performances, it probably wasn't his best. It's hard to top making fun of Donald Trump while in the back of your mind that you're taking out Osama bin Laden. I mean, that was sort of the coup. But I thought he did a really great job, and I certainly thought he did a better job than Joel McHale.
Yeah, he did. He did. And what I love, his timing is superb.
It is superb.
And
when the video works, when his video malfunctioned.
Right. But even then, he handled that like a pro.
Yeah, no, he is.
He said, just assume it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who didn't see it or weren't watching, he had a series of slides. Every once in a while, he would call for a slide, or a slide would pop up, and this one slide didn't show up.
He should have made an Obamacare joke.
He could have, right? But anyhow, he just said, it's funnier with the slide. Right. And then he went on and said, well, just assume it was funny. And then he went on, moved on.
Yeah. No, he's very good. Very good.
I love it when he laughs at his own jokes. When he
can't help himself.
No, when he gets a really good response, he just sort of chuckles.
Yeah. He sort of lets out one little laugh. He's
right. And then, as you said, Joel McHale. It's always hard to follow the president of the United States.
You're sort of screwed.
You really are. Yeah.
That's when it comes to tough acts to follow.
So Joel McHale, he started out proving right from the very beginning that nobody was sacred.
Good evening, Mr. President, or as Paul Ryan refers to you, yet another inner city minority relying on the federal government to feed and house your family.
Nothing is sacred. There went on. At times he went over the line, I thought.
Certainly went over the line at times. And I found that, and again, it's always different how it plays in the room and how it plays on television. Yep. But there were times where I literally thought he was just flailing up there. And then he'd save himself. He'd get in a good line. He'd win the crowd back over. So it wasn't a total
People
disaster.
were wincing at times.
People were wincing. There's just some stuff that was sort of low, sort of cruel.
Yeah.
As one person I talked to after the show said, he could have used a Washington editor. He sort of went off into sort of generalized jokes that appealed to a national audience. And I think the way to kill it at that event is to really appeal to sort of the political
the other big dinner in town, which is that I think really a stupid kind of tradition, is the gridiron dinner, because you have to have white tie.
Yes.
And tails.
It's hard. It was hard enough for me to rent a tux.
Right. But the gridiron, the slogan is, the gridiron shall singe but never burn.
Right.
And I think that's an important distinction that Joel McHale didn't learn.
Right. And I think in the era of comedy of today, it's very hard because, the humor has become more and more crass, and you don't want to be forgotten. You certainly don't want to just tell jokes that are kind of too tame.
Yeah.
So it's a very hard line to walk, and I think there are only a few comedians who can do it.
Yeah, at least Joel McHale wasn't as bad as Don Imus. I can say that for him at any rate. Well, there is a lot more media news to talk about than the White House Correspondents' Dinner. As much fun as we had on Saturday night. Big news on Bloomberg News. Big news broken by Dylan Byers of Politico, who's with us. Your calls, your questions, your comments, welcome at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back. Talk Bloomberg and other news.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You make it sound very easy to take these 90-degree turns in your career. You went from engineering to law. But there's an awful lot of people at that age who feel they're on a track, they've invested time in learning a career, and they need to see it through to the end, or maybe their parents are pushing them to stay in one route. What is your advice for a young person?
Stay away from your parents.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
My mom is a pretty spectacular human being. We essentially came to the United States as refugees. And that is when I really got to understand who my mom was as a person. Being a refugee in a foreign country, you would think that it would affect you so much. It was like my mom, nothing changed for my mom. What was really at her core and her center was always being with her kids and getting to spend time with them and making sure that they were okay and making sure that they could still go out and play soccer. I knew that if my goal was to go to Liberia and to work on economic justice so that, kids could go to school and have access to a doctor if they have malaria, that if I bet on their moms, we win.
I think I just come from a lineage of kick-ass women is all I can say. My grandmother came to this country from Mexico as a single mom with 5 children. And I, have an amazing mother who had 3 children, was going to school, working full-time. I mean, almost my story. But she did that and got her bachelor's degree at 40. And so I had a great role model. When I came home and told my mom I was pregnant, her response to me wasn't, your life is over. Her response to me is, well, I want a plan. You need to, let me know what you're going to do about this because you're now responsible for somebody else.
I was the first one in my family to go to college, and my parents were very proud of it. They both had to work. My mom in a factory and my dad in the supermarket, and I was their success story. However, on graduation day, they said, are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be an engineer? You're going to be a businessman? What are you going to, lawyer? I said, I'm going to join the Peace Corps. And they said, what? My parents were very much opposed to this, and it was very difficult.
How much pressure did they put on you?
Tremendous pressure. Up until we were leaving from O'Hare Airport for me to go to Peru, my mother questioning me, like, where is Peru? You've never been out of the country. What do you know? Do they have doctors? Do they speak English there? What are you going to eat? You like my cooking? I said, Mom, I'm going to be a pioneer. Why do you always have to be the pioneer? Let them do it. Let them come back, and then you go. I said, no, I want to be the first to go.
I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood, so there was a lot of gang activity. And one of my friends actually was murdered on a basketball court when a 15-year-old child shot him in the back of the head. And I was just hopeless. And my mom actually, she brought me to a place of empathy for the kids who were involved in actually murdering him. Because my mom sort of said, look, where do you think those kids are coming from? And then she said, so if you're angry about it, do something. Actually change the way this world works.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we are, 24 minutes after the hour, Monday morning, Cinco de Mayo. Dylan Byers, with the Dylan Byers media blog at Politico. Check it out at Politico.com. You often find breaking news there, as we did at the end of the week. Friday, was it? Or Saturday? Sunday even. Yesterday.
Written with the hangover.
Right in the middle of the hangover. Breaking news on Bloomberg, which is
that, they've hired John Heilemann and Mark Halperin to come launch this basically standalone politics channel.
Co-authors of
Game Change.
Game Change, and then Double Down.
And
two of the best known political reporters.
Yeah, but no, I think at this point, in the wake of Game Change and the success that Game Change had, of course, there was the HBO movie. It was a huge bestseller. There's no duo whose names are sort of better associated with presidential election media coverage.
Yep.
So huge get. Now it's they paid a lot of money, and this is the Bloomberg gamble, which is they weren't big players in terms of election coverage in 2008 or 2012. So their theory of the case is, let's throw money at the 2 biggest names in this business, at least specifically for presidential elections, and let's see if we can buy our way into being a serious player for 2016.
Yeah, they sort of have a reputation and are known, Bloomberg, for being the business channel almost, right? And at the White House briefings, the Bloomberg reporter always, inevitably ask a question financial related.
Right.
It's always about the market or about something financial related. Again,
right.
But not politics.
No, and the Bloomberg has always wrestled with how it's handled Washington. It invested heavily in a government project that was going to have all this great government data for people who wanted to pay for it.
Yeah.
Then it's decided it was going to build up its news bureau, and it's kind of gone through a sort of turbulent period in making that work. And this is the first decision to say, okay, no, we're like really taking on politics in a serious way, not just from the perspective of Wall Street.
Mark Halperin and John Heilemann also are seen. I saw John this morning, almost every morning on Morning Joe.
Right.
On MSNBC.
Which that is a complicated relationship that we're going to see how that plays out. And my guess, based off of the sources I've talked to, is that they're still figuring it out because according to the Bloomberg deal, Halperin and Heilemann are going to host their own daily show on Bloomberg TV.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how did they do that and also have this MSNBC gig? My guess is you're going to start to see Heilemann and Halperin a little bit less frequently on MSNBC. They might show up with sort of the frequency of regular guests as opposed to permanent, consistent contributors.
All right. Now, I was in the Rose Garden on Friday at the news conference with President Obama and Chancellor Angela Merkel, where they get 2 questions from the U.S. press, 2 questions from the German press, and the questions were about the Ukraine, they were about NSA, about spying,
big issues,
about the death penalty, botched death penalty thing in Oklahoma.
Right.
Fox News wasn't happy because they didn't ask what Fox News wanted to talk about. Here's how it sounded on Fox News.
I believe that we're going to be able to get them resolved to the satisfaction, not just of our 2 countries, but of people around the world.
Pause. Fox News.
All right, we were waiting for others to ask questions. We know that the next question that's coming up is from a German reporter. We are not anticipating that would be about the situation with Benghazi, which is breaking news since the president has been talking, really. So if, in fact, somebody throws him a question on this topic, we'll go back to that joint news conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and you could hear some of the translation points with the question, so on and so forth. We're going to move on
so
here.
There's the point. If he's not talking about, we're just about out of time.
Yeah.
If he's not talking about what we're talking about, it ain't news.
Listeners, if you can't see my face, I was rubbing my face in my hands because it's just so depressing. It's like, come on, get off it.
Yeah.
Or stay on it, but stay on the other news too. I don't know.
Yeah,
Terribly disappointed.
But the idea, the president's not talking about what we want to talk about, he's not worth covering.
It's unbelievable.
All right. Dylan Byers, Godspeed. Great to see you. Thanks for getting up early.
This
My pleasure.
is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I talk to undergraduates and graduate students who are desperate to go out and start something and build something and be the one to come up with that silver bullet solution. And I just want to say, slow down.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis. Most of the people you're talking to who want to come into the social change space, are they prepared?
If you're early in your career, there's a couple of really important things to do. The first one is just to shut the hell up and don't talk for about 5 years and work really, really hard. The only way you're going to be given more difficult things to do is by solving the ones you're already given. And if you're somebody who's always complaining or wants to be promoted above where they really are, you can't learn enough to start to take on a greater pool of responsibilities.
Advice you would give a person coming out of college is go work for other people, make your mistakes on their dime.
That sounds like me, absolutely.
It does sound like you.
And you know who that came from is one of my board members, Eric Buttline. Eric had seen me start a few companies as a young kid. I mean, I started my first real company when I was 16. And Eric said, "Chid, do me a favor. I know you have this thing in your head that you think you're this great entrepreneur, but like, go work for somebody for a little while and just learn how things are supposed to be done. And when you're done with that, let's have another conversation about, your next venture."
And I think another thing to remember, and this is something that I've really only learned in the past couple of years, is that although the problems are urgent and so important for us to address, I need to have more patience. I'm not going to solve those problems on my own. You're not going to solve those problems on your own. I'm an apprentice in all of this. You know, I'm an apprentice in life. I'm an apprentice in problem solving. I'm not going to change the world until I'm at least 65. That's my goal at this point.
California, or the Golden State, has been in the midst of a 3-year drought, and this year, some scientists predict could be the driest in 500 years. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in January and in February of this year. The world's 10th largest economy, California is also the United States' top agricultural producer. Half of all our fruits and vegetables come from California. The Golden State is not the only place on the planet struggling for this vital resource. In December 2013, the World Resources Institute found that 37 countries face severe water shortages. Free Speech TV would love to know what you think about this fight for water, especially if you're from the Golden State. Please call our comment line at 1-888-378-8855 or email us at comments@freespeech.org to let us know your thoughts.
Tune into the Thom Hartmann Program, a live broadcast featuring the nation's #1 progressive talk show host. Phones open at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Free Speech TV.
To you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Monday morning, 33 minutes after the hour on May 5, Cinco de Mayo, here on The Bill Press Show. Good to have you with us. It was last Thursday in the East Room of the White House where President Obama welcomed to the White House and gave full honors to Sean McComb from up in Baltimore at the Patapsco High School and Center for the Arts, and saluted him as the Teacher of the Year. We think about teachers, we think of the National Education Association and their president, Dennis Van Roekel, who joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Dennis. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill.
So there's a lot of talk about teachers and teaching these days, because tomorrow is National Teacher Day. What do you have planned for that?
Well, we have activities going on all over the country, but there are really two goals that we want to accomplish on this National Teacher Day on Tuesday, May 6th. Number one, we encourage people to reach out to a teacher they remember, someone who made a difference in their life. And whether you Twitter or email or phone call or send a letter, just contact them and say thank you. And the second thing we want to accomplish with this recognition of not only the people who actually teach every day in schools across the nation, but to put out a word about the profession, encourage young people to. It's a demanding profession, but we need people to come into the profession. We want to encourage them to do that. And, of course, if you want to pledge your support for National Teacher Day, you can go to NEA.org/Teacher Day. NEA.org/Teacher Day, and there you can sign a petition in support of America's teachers.
That's great. So NEA.org, pardon me, .Teacher Day, and Teacher Day, I guess, is all one word, right?
Yes, /Teacher Day.
Right. NEA.org/Teacher Day. Got it. You know, I love that idea of reaching out to some teacher who was particularly, at whatever level, right, was particularly important to you, because we all have those in our lives. I mean, teachers who really made the difference either in grade school or high school or even college, and helped us steer our own path or inspired us as to what we might want to do in life, or just, got us going on the right track, right?
Absolutely. And, it's a different time for all of us. I've heard people talk about a college professor they had that just suddenly opened up to them as an individual some possibilities, and they knew at that moment what they really wanted to do with their life. And I've had people talk about their high school teachers or elementary. So, as you say, it can be at any level. But the interesting thing is that sometime, somewhere, one of these teachers made a real impact. And to reach out and say thank you, and I can tell you as a 23-year veteran of the classroom teaching high school math, years later, when you get a note or an email, it is so... And there's no monetary gift that compares with just that simple thing.
It's funny. I can remember the names of every one of my grade school teachers.
You're amazing, Bill.
No, seriously. I was starting with first grade Mrs. Clara Money in Delaware City, Delaware. So that those, and they were, except for one, all women, they made a serious impression and impact on me.
Oh yeah, it's fun sitting around and sometimes talking about stories, what you remember most about teachers in your past. And, I don't know if this is good or bad, but it's rarely about content you learned. Mm-hmm. It's really about the relationship and the interaction with those people.
And the
ones who really connected with you.
Yeah, and the encouragement they gave you, and the example that they set. Absolutely, right.
And I think that's what's so important as we recognize and talk about education. We've narrowed what an education means to such a narrow piece of information, one test on one day given to 3rd to 8th graders, and if that somehow describes, evaluates, or defines an education, it is so wrong. Yeah. Because when we think back, what we remember are the people, the relationships, and as you say, the encouragements and the connection. That's what makes it special, and that's why National Teacher Day is so... What a great time to reach out to those people and say, I remember and thank you.
Now, I want to ask you about the second part of that equation, which is your effort to encourage young people to the teaching profession. I must say, Dennis, as a former teacher, and I taught high school for 3 years, okay? I found they were the most fulfilling days of my life, probably, in terms of personal satisfaction and enjoyment in terms of any job, and yet the most poorly compensated.
Yeah,
Bill, what are we doing about that?
I started teaching a long time ago. I earned this gray hair. I always, when I speak to audiences, I ask how many taught before 1983, and when they raise their hands, I say we are the lucky ones. Because that was before Nation at Risk. And up until 1983, public education was always seen as the solution, never the problem. GI Bill, National Defense Education Act, National Elementary Secondary Education Act, Education Migrant, Special Ed Education, all of that came. Then in 1983, public education was defined as a problem. And then I say, raise your hand if you started teaching in the fall of 2002 or later. And, of course, there's always hands, and I say to the rest of the group, these are the ones that I feel sorry for. They've been cheated. They have only taught in a world of No Child Left Behind and testing mania. How sad that they only know that. We need to get rid of that and bring the joy back to learning and to teaching.
And what is the NEA or other organizations doing, actually, in terms of recruiting? I mean, do you do you go around to campuses, or do you just depend on the job the teachers are doing to recruit new teachers?
Recruiting is one part. Then it is the training, good solid training and licensure process, and then it is a good evaluation system that gives feedback and professional development. So you're learning from the first day till the last day you're in the classroom. What I'm doing, Bill, and I've worked on so hard for the last 6 years, is I talk about it all the time that we need to recognize that teaching is a profession. These people who want teachers to come in and out in every 2 to 3 years are crazy. There's no occupation in the world where we want people to be there only 2 years. Plumber, electrician, carpenter. Why would we want it for the teachers of our children? We need people to come into the profession, invest in that education, and stay in that profession.
Is there any greater recognition of the need to pay teachers adequately and really? It's the most important job, I believe, in the country, but it's certainly not. I'm not sure. I'm not saying they have to get Larry Ellison wages, right, or Wall Street wages, but at least to be able to make a decent living.
Yeah, you know what? Countries that seem to excel in this area about the recruitment of teachers, they don't obsess over the individual payment to individual teachers. They look at it as a profession, and so what they try and do is keep the pay for or compensation for teaching comparable to other professions with similar requirements of background. I was a math major in college. Do I go into engineering, accounting, actuarial science?
I got it, right.
Well, they would say keep all of those comparable so that people are not punished the day they make a decision to go into teaching. So it's more than just individuals. It's pay for the profession to make it comparable to other professions with the same requirement of training.
I know, Dennis, we're talking about Dennis Van Roekel from the National Education Association, NEA.org. I know we had, because of some of the cuts at the city level and the county level and the state level, a lot of teachers lost their jobs through the economic crash of 2000. After the economic crash of 2008, are they coming back now, Dennis? Where are we with that in terms of
some
public
are,
employees?
but very slowly. And the reminder I give all the time is, when we had all of those adults leave the system, the children didn't leave. In fact, more came. And so we have more children than we had before and less people to teach, provide the support. So it's been really devastating. And when you think how long ago those cuts started, there are many kids who half of their elementary experience was in very large class size with less support systems. And it's a sad thing. We need to reinvest where our future is, and that's in education and our kids of today.
Now, I know that your time as president of the NEA will be coming to a close soon. I'm sorry to see that happen, but are you going back to the classroom, Dennis? What are your plans?
I think I'm too old. They probably won't let me in, Bill. No, I finished my term on August 31st, and I'm going back to Arizona. I want to spend a lot more time with my grandkids. I know I'm not looking for a job. I started teaching 46 years ago. I think that's close to a career. I know I won't sit around, but I'll take my time to figure out how I want to spend that next career after NEA and teaching.
Well, I have a feeling you will not be too far from the education system and schools and teachers and continuing to make a contribution wherever you can, and maybe once in a while a guest teaching spot or something.
Maybe I'll just go the circuit and talk to wonderful people like you.
Well, we could do that too, right? Well, we thank you again. So it's National. I want to remind our listeners and viewers again. National Teacher Day is tomorrow, Tuesday, May 6th, and you can find out how to help out and send your support to teachers by going to NEA.org/Teacher Day. That's right, Dennis?
You got it, Bill, and thanks very much. I've enjoyed all my times on your show.
No, we'll get you back in again. We got time between now and August to get you back in studio.
It's a deal.
Okay, and we want to thank Dennis and the NEA, too, for their sponsorship of the Bill Press Show. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour on this Monday morning, May 5. In the next hour, President J.A. David Cox from the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, will be joining us in studio, as well as David Graham, who is the politics editor for The Atlantic magazine. And we will cover the waterfront, the political waterfront with him. Some interesting comments by Rick Perry while he was in town over the weekend, making a little news. The person who kind of got lost over the weekend, no regrets from me, was Donald Sterling after Adam Silver dropped the hammer on him last week. I guess the biggest news of the weekend is that the Clippers beat the Warriors 4-3, and they,
big weekend.
Yeah, so that was kind of a nice end for the players, at any rate, for the Clippers players, and for the team, and for the fans. Meanwhile, Barbara Walters from ABC snagged the big get, as they call it, the big get, right, of the year by getting an interview with Sterling's girlfriend, V. Stiviano. Did she take the shield off? I mean, she wears this.
Yeah, I think she actually exposed her face for this.
No, really?
Only for Barbara Walters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after she's shown up in like 10 million photographs of her and Donald Sterling sitting at game side together, she's been wearing the stupid shield when she talks to reporters or goes out in public. Maybe she took it off for Barbara Walters. And she had just come. Why? Who knows? She had just come from visiting with Mr. Sterling. Barbara asks her about that.
Mr. Viano, you just left Donald Sterling. What is his state of mind right now?
Confused. I think he feels very alone, not truly supported by those around him.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
I wonder why.
Yeah, why? This raises so many questions. Why is he even seeing her? Why does she even want to see him? what did she see in him in the first place other than his money? And if he feels that he's not being supported by his friends, nobody stabbed him in the back the way she did. I mean, this whole thing wouldn't have happened if she had not released the audio tapes to TMZ. Honest to God, what a bunch of losers. Meanwhile, Sterling is also talking, not to Barbara Waters. He turned that down. He didn't show up for her, but he talked to Du Jour magazine and told Du Jour magazine his only regret is that he didn't just give Stiviano more money. He said, "I wish I had just paid her off." But now, remember, he had already given her a Bentley, what was it? A Bentley, a $1.8 million house.
And a Range Rover, maybe?
A Range Rover, and then 2 Porsches or 2 Ferraris. I think 2 Ferraris, yeah. I mean, so it's not like he had not showered her already with millions and millions of dollars of gifts. He feels if he had just given her more money, maybe she would not have talked. But on the other, he's still got one person loyal to him, God knows why, his estranged wife, who is suing Stiviano to try to get some of those gifts and that money back because she said that was community property and Sterling didn't have a right to give all this stuff to his girlfriend. His estranged wife, Roekel Sterling, has now said that she actually agrees with the action taken by the NBA, which looks like that's a play on her part to say, I'll just take over. You're banning for life applies to Donald Sterling only, not to me. It's community property, so I can become the new owner of the Clippers, and then Donald Sterling will be out. I hope they do not let that happen. I mean,
and she was actually at the game over the weekend.
She has been, I think, at every game since this happened. Yeah, so he's not allowed, but she is. And she's making what? She's making a play for ownership of the team. That would be that'd be a colossal mistake. There'd be no difference. No difference. I don't care whether they're separated or not. No difference between Roekel Sterling and Donald Sterling. And I doubt that the NBA owners will let that happen. Okay, just bringing you up to date. And when we come back, President Obama, with his busy schedule at the White House today, recovering from the White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend, will tell you how he's going to do so. A big, another foreign visitor at the White House today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, you like these first 2 hours? Well, as a special treat, we're going to give you hour number 3. Problem is, you can't stay with us on Free Speech TV because they go somewhere else. But we'll be there on our video stream, TawkrTV. So jump on to youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. David Graham, political editor for The Atlantic, will be here to cover the politics of the day. And then J. David Cox, president of the American Federation of Government Employees, here for a very important segment. All of that coming up in hour number 3. Hope you stay around.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine. I would make medicine for the sick. I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. It's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters.
I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years.
I was thinking about making like
a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood. I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed.
If I had 5 more extra years to live,
I would be the boss of all the chipmunks.
eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas.
I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, President Obama, again, like all of Washington, recovering from the stress of the White House Correspondents' Dinner and all the surrounding parties over the weekend. He is back to business at the White House today, receiving the daily briefing at 10 a.m. this morning in the Oval Office. And then at 10:55, he begins a series of meetings, bilateral sort of mini summit with the president of Djibouti, African nation, of course. And after those meetings, the president at 5:50 this afternoon will be hosting a Cinco de Mayo reception in the Rose Garden of the White House. Usually those are held in the East Room. Weather permitting, it'll be outside in the Rose Garden. We have our briefing today with Jay Carney at 1 o'clock. In the next hour, we'll talk politics of the day, some big political news over the weekend, particularly from Rick Perry. Politics of the day with David Graham, politics editor for The Atlantic. And then J. David Cox, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, will be here in studio. Some interesting and sort of troubling information about some real cuts in food inspectors and poultry inspectors, thanks to Republican efforts to cut some vital government programs. Hour number 3 coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I'm a Pistons fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. Not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for. I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
California Chrome wins the Kentucky Derby. How about it? And those two men who were called dumbasses for spending $8,000 on that horse. Not that horse, but the father of, or the mayor of, I guess, the mother of. At any rate, they're not such a dumbass now. They got the winner of the Kentucky Derby. Yes, indeed. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Good to see you today. Hope you had a great weekend. We sure did here in Washington, D.C. with a big White House Correspondents' Dinner. But we are back, hard at work now, and celebrating a different occasion today because it is Cinco de Mayo. There we are. Yeah, just a little taste of south of the border today to carry us through.
Alicia's bringing in your margarita, Bill.
Oh, good. I'm ready for it. I've been waiting all morning for that. Our third hour together this morning. Good to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us on your local progressive talk radio station, nationwide, coast to coast, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yeah, it was Hollywood on the Potomac this weekend with the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Politics politicians were there, but politics kind of set aside so everybody could rub elbows and pat each other on the back Saturday night. David Graham is politics editor for The Atlantic, joins us in studio this morning. Hey, David, good to see you.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
All right. Starting off a Monday morning. Nice to have you in nice and early to join our team here. Lisa Murphy, our lead producer, with Peter Ogburn, still out of town. Hi, Lisa.
Yeah, you must be having fun in New Orleans, I'm sure. Happy Monday.
You can't help but have fun in New Orleans.
I know.
Right? It's sort of like Vegas, you know. It's the Sin City of the South. Vegas is the Sin City of the West. Alicia Cruz standing by to take your calls. Remember, you can join our conversation. Invite your comments, your calls, your questions anytime at 866-55-PRESS. And keeping us looking good on the video stream, Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. So, David, first of all, the dinner Saturday night, President Obama, he's really the entertainer-in-chief, you know, particularly.
He is. I'm impressed how he keeps milking the birther issue for jokes, too. I keep thinking he's worn it out, and he comes up with new lines every year.
Oh, yeah. No, he did,
He
right?
did.
Again, he
Yeah.
said it was good to have an American rather than a Kenyan win the Boston Marathon because, after all, we've had a Kenyan as president for the last 6 years. You know,
So they can't convince Fox News can't convince people that Hillary is born in Kenya either.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, he keeps that. You're right. He keeps that issue alive, and that kind of self-deprecating humor he is very good at.
Yeah.
And he also admitted that last year he did not have a very good year.
Of course, we rolled out healthcare.gov. That could have gone better.
You see, his sense of timing, too. A little pause, just long enough. People wonder, oh, my, right? And then, boom, he hits him with that. It was really, really good. He also was merciless when it came to the media. Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN. Here he is.
I am happy to be here, even though I am a little jet lagged from my trip to Malaysia. The links we have to go to get CNN coverage these days.
He followed it through by saying that CNN was probably still looking for its table.
Oh, yeah.
We were right alongside the CNN table. They were not laughing. And maybe the line of the night, no doubt about it, Joel McHale, President Obama, but President Obama got the line of the night, I think, when he talked again about Speaker Boehner.
And I'm feeling sorry, believe it or not, for the Speaker of the House as well. These days, the House Republicans actually give John Boehner a harder time than they give me, which means orange really is the new black.
Nobody expected that line, and it was it really brought the house down. There were several that did. Particularly, I think that was the biggest laugh line of the night. Yeah,
he really seems to overshadow the headliners.
He always does.
Yeah.
No, I just wonder why they even bother. I mean, Jay Leno, Seth Meyers. I mean, Seth Meyers was brilliant. He was really, really good. He was the best that I've seen, I think. But still, all you need is, at least with Obama, all you need is the president of the United States.
Yeah.
The rest might as well just pack it up and go. Pack it up and go. What a hard act to follow, indeed. David Graham here with us for the first half hour, then President J. David Cox from the American Federation of Government Employees. And I think we'll just jump right into it here, David, and get to the politics of the day. I tweeted out to all of our followers here on the Bill Press Show a picture of me with, not a selfie, but a picture taken of me by a friend Saturday night with Governor Rick Perry from Texas, who was at the CNN table right next to ours. And then Rick Perry, he was in good form. He was loose as a goose and visiting with everybody. He's got his new glasses on. Yeah, he told me that it's nice to be able to see, when you're... so he's happy he's wearing his glasses. And then he made a little news yesterday on Meet the Press. He was asked about running for president and in 2016 after his embarrassing run 2012. But he admitted that he's thinking about it, and he says, America's a land of second chances. Do you really think he's got a second chance?
I mean, I'm sure he can put together a run that will get some momentum, but I can't imagine him winning a nomination. It seems like it takes more than hipster glasses to get people to forget a run like that, and the field is just so much stronger. Doesn't it seem to you?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, depends on who you're talking about, right?
I just think there's so much excitement about who knows about a general election, but I think that there's a lot of excitement in the Republican Party about a Cruz or a Paul or even a Rubio more than somebody who's been around and shown he can't remember three things.
Right. Well, he laughs about that and says, obviously, that was a bad moment, right? But and it's interesting because I talked to two of the political reporters from CNN who went out of their way to tell me they believe that Rick Perry is just totally underrated because of that one mistake, that he's smarter than you think, that he's a great retail politician, that he's been for Texas a successful governor, for Texas, I emphasize. And they said, you're going to be surprised at how well he does. I would be surprised.
Sure. Yeah, I'm willing to believe that he's a better politician than he showed us last time. But I wonder about his retail skills. He has that tendency to go off script and talk about lynching the chairman of the Federal Reserve, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that the things that I just think it'll be hard to overwrite what people remember.
Well, when you talk about politicians who've been around a long time and maybe their time has come and gone, why all the excitement about Jeb Bush?
Well, he's never run for president.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had opportunities, but he's passed them by.
Sure, he has. Yeah. Well, Americans love a dynasty, don't they?
We'll find out.
Yeah. It's hard for me to believe that the Bush name isn't a major handicap too. But you can see why the party likes somebody like that. He is he's conservative, clearly. He's going to raise a lot of money. He's familiar. He's not going to say crazy things. So he's a Republican elder. You like a guy like that.
Conservative, but not crazy.
Right.
Which was kind of like the way Mitt Romney got the nomination. Sure. And we saw how that worked out. Right. Big political news tomorrow on another front. In North Carolina, where Kay Hagan, incumbent, is running for a re-election. And the question has been, we know North Carolina has really gone south in a sense politically with the legislature, with the governor. Everybody expects her to have a tough time. A lot of it depends on who the Republican nominee is. Yeah. We'll find out tomorrow. What's it look like?
It looks like Tom Tillis will win, who's the Speaker of the Assembly. But the question is whether he will avoid a runoff. He's got to get to 40% to get out of a runoff.
40%.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's got several Republican opponents. Probably the best well-known is Greg Brannon. And I think it's just an interesting test case for a lot of things. I mean, it's a real establishment versus Tea Party battle. Everyone's been lining up behind Tillis from the establishment side, trying to push him over the 40% mark.
Who's the Tea Party candidate?
Well, there's several. Greg Brannon is probably the most prominent one. He's had Rand Paul was out campaigning with him, and he's a sort of Cruz-style, Paul-style candidate. And you've got the Democrats trying to drive down turnout for Tillis, running ads about how what he's done as Speaker of the General Assembly. So you see whether the Democratic strategy works and they can drive down turnout. You see whether the establishment can knock out a Tea Party challenger. And I think that'll tell us a lot about what happens in November.
Brannon has said some crazy things, hasn't he?
He is. He's out there.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think, because I know on one Al Sharpton show I was on, they were talking about Brannon. But I mean, he's a certifiable Tea Party candidate.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, right. So overall, how are Tea Party candidates doing? They don't seem to me to be doing as well this year as they did the last cycle around. I mean, look at Kentucky, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
Look at South Carolina. Everybody thought the Tea Party was going to drive Lindsey Graham crazy. It doesn't look that way, right?
Yeah, Lindsey looks to be skating by without any kind of serious challenge at all. Matt Bevin is falling apart in Kentucky. Anytime you're waffling on whether or not you support cockfighting, I think you're probably in bad shape. That's not the grounds you want to fight an insurgent campaign on.
No. As President Obama said at the dinner Saturday night, anytime you start a sentence, let me tell you what I think about the Negra. It's not going to end well, right?
Yep.
So anytime you have to start out by "here's why I went to to this cockfight," it's not going to end well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess that's true in Kansas too. You've got Milton Wolf flaming out with the X-rays and a million things. So just not a good set of races for Tea Party candidates.
So the establishment Republicans may have succeeded in their goal then of sidelining in the Senate primaries. We'll see again.
Yeah, we'll
tomorrow.
see for sure.
But it looks that way overall. So does that mean that Republicans have a better chance of taking control of the Senate?
I think it generally does. I mean, when you have these consistent candidates who are more experienced, they're less likely to do things that are going to get them in trouble. These Republican flameouts we saw 2 years ago were people who just went off the cuff and Todd Aiken and Richard Murdoch's of the world. And you're less likely to get that from these guys. But I mean, Tom Tillis is by no means a gold-plated candidate. He was caught stretching his resume, and the Republican regime in North Carolina has been quite conservative, which could be a weakness. So it's hardly a slam dunk if he wins the primary.
As you know, we tend in Washington, one person writes a certain story and then everybody writes the same story. I mean, and the narrative 2 weeks ago was that Republicans are going to take control of the Senate. It just looked like it was lost for Democrats. Now the narrative seems to be changing a little bit. From your position, politics editor of The Atlantic, how do you see it? I mean, obviously there's a long time between now and November, as let's recognize that, and anything could happen. But if you look at the races today, right?
I mean, I think that changing narrative is a good example of how it's easy to make a prediction but hard to really get on the mark, because it does change so quickly. You see Obamacare news getting better, and you see Democratic numbers ticking up. You see somebody like Mark Pryor polling much stronger than anybody expected in Arkansas. So, I mean, I guess if you put a gun to my head, I would still probably favor the Republicans to take the Senate, but I think it's just really tough to tell, and there's so many variables still on the board.
Well, when you look, I think there are two things. First of all, most people say, well, President Obama's poll numbers are down to 41%.
Sure.
That means Mary Landrieu, Mark Pryor, Mark Beggish, isn't it? Mark is first name, or Kay Hagan, in New Hampshire, Jean Shaheen. They're all going to have a harder time.
Sure.
Really?
Well, it sort of depends where you look. I mean, people use that.
Do you
that Obama
really think
number.
that people like in New Hampshire are going to say, "Boy, I really like Jean Shaheen, but God, Obama's poll numbers are so low. I'm gonna vote against her." See, I don't buy that.
Yeah, I certainly don't think in New Hampshire. I mean, I think,
but even in Louisiana, they like Mary Landrieu or they don't. I don't think they're going to vote.
Sure.
I mean, personally, I just don't think they're going to vote based on whether or not Obama's poll numbers are up.
Yeah, I take Obama's poll numbers as an indicator more than as a cause, right? I mean, if you look at Obama's numbers in those southern states, they're incredible.
Yeah.
Just so low.
I'm sure they're lower than 41.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So I saw somebody prior Obama was at like 13% approval among undecideds in Arkansas. But sure, I mean, no one's going to look at that poll number and make the decision based on that. That's not going to be it at all. It's going to be whether they like somebody like Mary Landrieu.
Right. And then the other is when you look at state by state,
Yeah.
Mary Landrieu is a hell of a campaigner.
Mhm.
Gene Shaheen is a hell of a campaigner,
Yeah.
and Scott Brown is a carpetbagger, right? Mark Pryor's a really good campaigner. So is Kay Hagan. So when you look at those those states
Sure.
and you look at those individual races, there's some pretty strong candidates.
That's absolutely right. I mean, the problem for Democrats is they've relied on basically running the table the last few cycles on these Senate races.
Yes.
You wonder how long their luck can run. But if they have the same kind of luck they did, they could hold on very easily, I suppose.
Yeah. So it could go either way. Right now, you would give a slight edge to the Republicans. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that depends on how much they're able to score with Benghazi, which is the issue of the day for Republicans. We will talk about that with David Graham from The Atlantic when we come back here on the Bill Press Show. Again, your questions and comments always welcome at 866-55-PRESS. A special Watergate kind of select House committee on Benghazi, as if we haven't already had enough hearings on Benghazi. That's coming up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat?
This is the Bill Press Show.
It's 27 minutes after the hour. President J. David Cox from the American Federation of Government Employees in our next half hour here. Right now we're talking the political landscape of the day with David Graham, who's politics editor for The Atlantic. David, I was in the Rose Garden Friday with when the president held his joint news conference with Chancellor Angela Merkel from Germany. And they covered a lot of important issues, Ukraine, particularly NSA and surveillance and the differences between the two countries. Fox News decided they weren't going to cover the news conference. They broke away from it because nobody asked a question. There were 4 questions, 2 German, 2 American. Nobody asked a question about Benghazi. Clearly,
the Germans didn't want to ask about it?
The Germans didn't want to ask about it, no. But, and John Boehner, as we said, called for the special committee on Benghazi. Darrell Issa subpoenaed John Kerry to testify at yet another hearing on his committee. This is the issue they intend, got about 30 seconds, the issue they intend to ride on, right?
Well, I think I saw this is the 9th committee on Benghazi. So they're really pushing it, but I think they're going to have to find something more than emails that were withheld, perhaps improperly.
Just that one email.
One email given over late isn't a whole lot to work on.
Also, it's one email providing some talking points for a Sunday morning talk show.
Yep.
This is
Watergate.
This is an impeachable offense, right? I mean, everybody in this town gets talking points before they go on television, right?
Yeah, I can't see it going very far.
All right. Well, good work at The Atlantic. Thanks so much for coming in this morning. See you again soon. Thanks, David.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go on Cinco de Mayo 2014, 33 minutes after the hour. Good to have you with us today as we come to you live coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station, and as we come to you worldwide, all around the globe on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital and brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, good men and women of the AFGE, proud public servants under President J. David Cox. Proud to work for America every day. You bet. For more information, you can visit their website at afge.org or just ask President J. David Cox, who joins us in studio this morning. J. David, hello, Mr. President. Nice to see you this morning.
Good morning. Nice to see you, Bill.
And I must say, we had a great time at the White House Correspondents' Dinner Saturday evening, and President Cox was at our table, one of our guests there, and it was a good time, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. The jokes were great.
And like everybody was there. You turn around, we had Rick Perry was at the table next to us. Chris Christie was right over here, right? You know, and Chuck Schumer was across the aisle. Steny Hoyer, I saw on the way out, was right across the aisle. So,
and the best Congresswoman, Donna Edwards, was at our table.
You are so right. You know, she was she's great. I just love her.
She's the absolute best, and such a true friend of working men and women, and just everyone. And I remember her early days in her career when she was running in a primary every Saturday morning at the giant grocery store, campaigning for Donna and working for Donna, and I've never regretted it.
Is that right? Yeah,
yes.
She has been a very, very good friend and a good supporter, strong supporter of working men and women, working families. You know, she said something to me Saturday night, which I thought was really important, because we were talking about John Boehner appointing this special committee now to investigate Benghazi, like a Watergate-like committee. And she said, I think Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, should refuse to appoint any Democrat to that committee.
And I agree with that. I mean, it's how many times do you just appoint committees to just investigate? It's nothing but a political witch hunt. You know what that is.
It's just a show hearing, right, or
Very much
whatever.
So.
And I think the way to make that point would be to have all Republicans on the committee. Right.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And you also know that if there are any Democrats on the committee, they wouldn't have time to ask. They'd be cut off like Darrell Issa cuts off Elijah Cunningham all the time, right? Yeah.
Just like he cuts me off when I'm over there.
Oh.
He does not discriminate. He does it equally to every one of us.
I bet, yeah, he said that. So, President Cox, I saw a couple of weeks ago, you had an article, might have been in Huffington Post, about poultry inspectors and the cuts. And, I mean, this is pretty serious stuff, right?
Bill, it's very serious. What the administration is proposing is to speed up the chicken lines and the poultry processing plants, where currently an inspector inspects 35 birds a minute. They want to speed it up to 175 birds per minute.
Whoa. How could you even inspect 35 birds a minute?
I couldn't inspect 35 birds.
I couldn't inspect one a minute.
No, it's that's you realize that's
insane.
That's less than a half a second. It's just
from 30. So from 35 to where? To
175.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And it's nothing but to save the government money and also produce greater income for the poultry industry. It's clearly, it's dangerous. The poultry industry is already saying that they will have to use more chemicals, more antibiotics to inject the birds and own the birds. And basically, it would be the fox guarding the hen house because most of the inspection would be done by the poultry companies themselves. There's a reason why you have government. It's to protect the American public, to regulate things such as the poultry industry and other things in this country. I want my food inspected. I do like to eat chicken.
Well, you would think, right, that this is something that there would be no controversy about. I mean, making that this is part of the job of the FDA, right? Is that we depend on them that what we buy is safe for us, safe for our kids. Right?
It's a responsibility that they have. We're disappointed that the administration continues to move forward.
So in this case, this is not coming from Republicans in Congress. This is an administration proposal.
This is coming from the administration. There's over 100 businesses and organizations that stepped up opposing this, saying, wait a minute, this is not going to be safe for the American public. This is not going to be the proper way to protect our children from salmonella, other diseases and all. I mean, if you've ever been into one of these poultry plants, and being from North Carolina, I have seen them. They are tough.
Yeah, but this is like what they say about the sausage factory. You know, you don't want to go in there to see how sausage is made, just like you don't want to maybe go through Congress to see how laws are made. I don't want to go through a chicken factory either for the same reason.
No, and it's chickens and turkeys, and it's rapidly moving conveyor belts, moving these along. There's the poultry industry workers have more on-the-job injuries than any other group. A lot of carpal tunnel, a lot of other injuries that occur. It's a dangerous business to be in, but also it's a big food supply for this country.
Sure.
And to not have that food properly inspected increases the cause of disease and those type things.
So these inspectors are federal government employees, right?
Yes, sir, they
are. Are they assigned to a particular plant?
They are assigned to a particular plant, particular shifts, and that is their job to inspect the poultry. And they are already under a great deal of scrutiny because if an inspector stops the line because of something's wrong with the chickens, obviously the company, the packing house, wants the line speeded back up because they're losing money. But that's the job of the inspector, is to protect the American public. If you transfer that responsibility to the industry themselves, I mean, they're going to keep the line going.
You might as
no
well not have any food inspection at all if you count on the industry to do it. I mean, the inspectors are there. I'm sure at one time there were no inspectors, right? And then they passed legislation saying, no, we need this, right?
After we had tens of thousands of people to die with salmonella, other diseases, there's a reason why we have laws and health regulations in this country, is to protect the American people.
Now, where are these proposed rules and regulations now? Have they taken effect? Or?
They have not taken effect, but they are in the Department of Agriculture. And we have constantly been opposing those, as well as many other groups have been opposing them. Over 220,000 people have signed a petition opposing the changes in the regulations. So we're out there on the ground actively opposing it and working with other groups that's opposing it. Consumer protection organizations, other organizations that believe that this is not in the best interest.
How about
of the
other like beef? The beef industry, are they the same? The same proposal?
The beef, there is not the same proposal for the beef industry.
Or pork or whatever.
Again, that industry, there's government inspectors that inspect that food and that meat. But
this is just the poultry. Huh?
Right. And again, it's a fast processing. I mean, from the time the chicken is hatched, within 6 weeks, the chicken is on the processing line. I mean, we eat a lot of chicken in this country, and chicken has been safe. But we believe this move will certainly create a crisis and endanger the American people.
This is these proposed rules and regulations. Hopefully, we can stop them. Coming from the administration. You can find out more, I'm sure, on the website at afge.org in a way that maybe you can make your voice heard on this issue. It is also time to think about our public servants and how we should recognize and honor our public servants. President J. David Cox here from the AFGE, American Federation of Government Employees. Let's talk about that when we come back on the other side. President Cox, all right? Here on a Monday morning, May 5. Don't forget your comments and your questions. Always welcome at 866-55-PRESS. Maybe you chicken lovers might have a question or so for President Cox here. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
14 minutes now before the top of the hour on a Monday morning, May 5. In studio with us, President J. David Cox, Sr., President of the American Federation of Government Employees. Federal government employees in just about every branch of government, right, President Cox?
Very much so, Bill. You name it, we represent them.
I know we've had one of your people in from the prison employees, prison guards, I guess, right? Or
correctional officers.
Correctional officers. I knew there was a better term for that, right? TSA members of your union,
Yes.
right, as well.
VA, Social Security, Department of Defense, HUD, EPA.
Yeah, and Department of Agriculture.
Department of Agriculture, yes,
right.
sir.
Now, I've said this often. I don't think people appreciate enough the work that our public servants do at the city, at the state, and at the federal level. What are we doing about that this week, huh?
This week, the first week of May, is always Public Service Recognition Week, and there's a lot of activities that goes on in the city. And I think many people tend to forget that most federal employees reside outside the Beltway. They do not live in Washington, D.C., and they forget about all the things that federal employees are involved with our lives. It's a government worker that fills out your birth certificate and a government worker that fills out your death certificate. So from cradle to grave, the government certainly provides services to us. And in between time, they inspect our food, they care for veterans, they protect our country with the national defense, they keep our air and water clean with EPA, and they protect us from criminals by running the Bureau of Prisons throughout the country.
No, you can just go down the list. I mean, there's so many ways in which we benefit from and are better off, right, because of the work of public employees who don't get the recognition, but they're there, they're doing their jobs every day.
Doing a great job. I just spent a week on the southern border with our Border Patrol agents.
Yes.
A great experience. Saw these men and women dealing with very, very difficult situations in some of the processing centers. They would have over 1,000 people that were trying to enter the country illegally on the process of the weekend. Many of these people are women with little children. Here's Border Patrol agents getting baby formula, getting Pampers, trying to see that they're fed, taken care of, all of those type things. And in many instances, women and children are being used as a front for drug smugglers. And it's a very difficult job. And these men and women do a great job and are very dedicated to protecting the borders of this country, but also are very humane to those people that they do arrest and take into custody and look after them.
One story that hasn't been told is that we have more Border Patrol agents more at the border today, right, than
Yes,
just
we
about
do.
ever before.
Yes, we do.
And so the flood or the flow of immigrants coming here illegally has really slowed down.
It has slowed down. There's still they probably only encounter between 10 and 20% of those that come in because it's a wide border. It's a lot of area, and it's just impossible for them to be everywhere. And when I watched them, Bill, I was wrestling and concerned about the rattlesnakes. They were out there. They seemed to dislike the ticks more than the rattlesnakes.
Oh,
but
really?
I was not excited about the rattlesnakes.
I hadn't thought about ticks being a problem, too.
The Border Patrol agents dislike the ticks more than the rattlesnakes. They say you can hear the rattlesnakes and get away from them. The ticks just get on you and stay there.
Whoa. You know, it is. I'm struck by what you said about people think of Washington, D.C. as where all the federal employees are. But really, you say there are many, many more around the country than there are in this city.
Oh, clearly.
I guess that's true with every agency because they're spread out all over.
They are all over the country, and every county, every city, we have government employees. And people tend to forget most federal employees have an average salary of $50,000 a year.
That's where I was going next.
That is not an astronomical amount of money. $50,000 a year to provide housing, food, clothing, pay their taxes, do all the things that they need to do. That's not a great deal of money. They are not the wealthy, and I'm not even sure they're deemed in the middle class anymore. I believe they're working class.
Right, working class Americans. And yeah, because you have this, again, you hear too often the criticism that they're just living high on the hog because they're federal employees. They're not, right? And in terms of their retirement plans or their pensions, I mean, they have one, but they're not going to be living in the country club.
Not at all. And for the last 2 years, Congress has steadily upped the amount of pension contributions of federal employees, where federal employees hired this year after January 1 of 2014 are paying an additional 3.6% into their retirement for no increased benefit. And to give you just sort of an idea of how that plays out, a dental assistant that would be hired at the VA Medical Center in Montana would be paid right at $32,000 a year, and the increased retirement cost for that dental assistant would be $1,100 a year. So that's a reasonable amount of money that is that person is going to pay for a retirement with no increased benefits or anything. It's basically, it was a taxation to temporarily fund unemployment benefits.
Do you, as part of this Public Servants Recognition Week, you encourage young people to look at federal government as a career?
I do.
Still?
I do continue to encourage people to look at the federal government as a career, because federal employees are dedicated civil servants. I wanted to work at the VA. I wanted to care for veterans. When I talked with these men and women on the border the other week, they wanted to be Border Patrol agents. They take their job with a great deal of pride and passion. People that do government work want to do it. Social Security folks, they have the most passion in their heart for processing Social Security, taking care of those folks that need to get disability and all. They're great people. They want to do that job. They want to service the American public.
Well, they do, and they do great work, and it's at least once a year. It's certainly something we ought to do, to take time out to recognize their great work and to thank them, just as we recognize your great work, President Cox, and thank you for coming in this morning. Again, if people want to find out more about how you can plug in, at afge.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill.
All right, come in again. All right,
Certainly
keep
will.
at it, and hopefully we'll get those chicken processing plants safe, too.
Very much so.
All right, I'll be right back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, we learned again Friday that neither Fox News nor Republicans in Congress are going to give up on Benghazi. First, Darrell Issa subpoenaed John Kerry to testify at yet another Benghazi hearing. Then John Boehner said he was appointing a special committee on Benghazi. And then Fox News refused to cover the entire news conference with President Obama and Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany because no reporter asked a question about Benghazi. And there's a reason why nobody asked about Benghazi, because everybody except those who work at Fox News know that Benghazi is a phony scandal. Have a good day, folks. See you back here again
tomorrow. This is The Bill Press Show.